Once upon a time, in the historic town of Badagry, the love journey of Cherry and Tom began. It was a love journey that tasted sweeter than honey when it started. Cherry had always been a woman who turned heads. Her skin was smooth like melted chocolates. Her eyes sparkled with joy, and her laughter was the kind that made people stop and smile. She walked with confidence, like a woman who knew her worth and who understood the power of her beauty, but never let it define her. She was radiant, bold, and free. And then she met Tom. From the first time he saw Cherry, he was captivated. She wasn't just beautiful, she was alive, and there was something about her that intrigued him. Tom was not poor, but he was not the wealthiest man in Badagry either. He was stable and hardworking, but what he lacked was confidence. He had never been the kind of man who stood out in a crowd. He had always been the average guy, the one women overlooked, until he met Cherry. From the moment he met her, he knew she was different, and so he was determined to make her his. He pursued her with passion, showing up at her favorite restaurants, sending her sweet messages, and showering her with attention. "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen," he would say to her. At first, Cherry was cautious. She had been in relationships before. Some were good, while some were bad, and so it took her some time to open up to Tom. Tom was caring, attentive, and always told her how special she was. So it felt perfect. When he proposed months later, she said yes without hesitation, unknown to her that she was walking into a carefully built trap. At the beginning of their marriage, everything was blissful. Tom was intentional, and he made her feel like the only woman in the world. But slowly, things began to change. It started with little seemingly harmless comments. One day, as she was preparing to go out, he came up to her. "Cherry, you don't need all that makeup. You are naturally beautiful. Why cover it up?" Cherry paused. She looked at herself in the mirror. She loved makeup, not because she needed it, but because it made her feel good. Yet, his words felt like a compliment. "You think so?" she asked. Tom smiled. "I know so." Cherry smiled and left the makeup off. Then he moved to the wigs. "Why wear those fake things? I love your natural hair. Let it breathe." Cherry loved her wigs too. She loved how they made her feel versatile, how she could go from curly to straight, or from short to long. But Tom's voice was soft and persuasive, so she started wearing simple scarves and natural braids instead. Next, he migrated to her clothes. "Cherry, you're a married woman now. All those tight dresses are too revealing. Let me buy you something more decent." The first time he bought her clothes, she was shocked. They were big, oversized gowns, baggy skirts, and loose blouses. "Tom, these are too big," she protested. "But they will make you comfortable, and besides, they are decent. I don't want men staring at my wife." Cherry hesitated. She had always been used to stylish, well-fitted clothes. Still, she didn't want to upset her husband, so she wore the dresses. After changing her appearance, he moved over to food. He would force her to eat more. "You need to eat more," he said, as he piled more food onto her plate. "A woman should be full. Who wants a skinny wife anyway?" Cherry laughed it off at first, but soon the weight started coming. Her old clothes didn't fit anymore, and her reflection in the mirror became a stranger. She no longer looked like the confident woman she once was. But Tom never complained. In fact, he seemed pleased. "See how beautiful you are now," he would say to her. Cherry tried to convince herself that he loved her just the way she was, that beauty was not about outward appearance, and that those things were vanity. But deep down, she was losing herself. Worst of all, Cherry soon noticed something strange. Despite how much Tom claimed to love her, he never took her out again. At first, he always had excuses. "The world is too dangerous. There are too many men out there who would look at another man's wife." Then, when he even took her out, she noticed something even more hurtful. He was ashamed of her. At family gatherings, he barely introduced her. At business events, he would walk ahead of her without looking back. Yet, she saw the way he admired other women who looked just like she used to. He would laugh at their jokes, compliment their hair, their dresses, and their beauty. But he didn't compliment her anymore. One evening, as they sat in bed, Cherry gathered the courage to ask, "Tom, do you still find me attractive?" He scoffed. "Only insecure women ask such questions, Cherry." She felt a sting in her chest. "But you used to tell me I was beautiful." "You are still beautiful now," he said dismissively. "But beauty is not important. Vanity is for foolish women." Cherry shifted away. Something inside her broke that night. She realized that her husband had never wanted her to feel beautiful. He wanted her to feel invisible. However, she endured, hoping he would change, but he never did. Until the day everything exploded. Tom's childhood friend Mark sent an invitation for his wedding. He would be getting married in a few weeks' time at a luxury beachside resort in Badagry. It was supposed to be an exquisite celebration, the kind of wedding where people arrived in fine cars, dressed in their best attire, and shining in their finest jewelry. Cherry too looked forward to it, but as the day drew closer, she realized that Tom had no intention of letting her look her best at the wedding. A few days before the wedding, she mentioned wanting to go to the boutique to pick out a nice dress. Tom frowned. "Boutique? For what? Cherry, you have plenty of dresses now." Cherry protested. "I have plenty of dresses, but I don't have anything elegant enough for a wedding like this." "You are a married woman, Cherry. Who do you want to impress?" "But," he cut her off immediately, "I already got something for you." Cherry sighed. When he handed her the dress, her heart sank deeper. It was another oversized gown, a dull-colored, shapeless piece of fabric that did nothing to her figure. "Tom," she said, trying to find the right words. But he only smiled. "You will look perfect in this." Cherry swallowed her disappointment and didn't argue. The wedding day came, and it was exactly as Cherry had imagined. It was elegant and lively. The women sparkled in expensive gowns with flawless makeup and perfectly styled hair. The men looked polished too, in well-fitted suits. As for Cherry, she felt invisible and sat quietly at a corner while Tom went about laughing and getting lost in conversations with his friends. As she looked around, she felt strange and detached. She wanted to belong. She used to be like these women. She used to feel beautiful, confident, and alive. But now, she was just there, barely existing. Then something unexpected happened. She had just excused herself to find the restroom, making her way through the crowd, when she heard someone call her name. "Cherry!" She turned and saw a tall, well-dressed man who was staring at her in shock. It took her a moment to recognize him. "Josh," she whispered. Josh had been one of her closest friends in university before they lost contact after she got married. "Wow," Josh said, still staring at her. "Cherry, is this really you?" Cherry forced a smile. "Yes, it is me." Josh looked pained and he couldn't hide it. "What happened to you? I mean, it's Cherry." Cherry. The question hit her like a dirty slap. She wanted to say she was happy. She wanted to say that she was fine, but she wasn't. Josh shook his head. "Cherry, you used to be the most confident woman I knew. You always said that no one could make you feel small. What changed?" Cherry felt a lump in her throat. "Was it that obvious?" Josh smiled gently. "Anyway, it is good to see you again." They moved to a corner and started talking about old times and about life. For the first time in a long while, Cherry felt like herself, talking freely to someone who didn't have any judgments against her. Unfortunately for her, Tom appeared. He was in the midst of laughing and socializing with other beautiful ladies when he turned and sighted Cherry standing with a man. At first, he refused to believe it because he felt that no man in his right senses would be able to approach her in her ugly and fat state. His face twisted with rage and disgust as he walked towards them. "What is this?" he snapped as he stepped in between them. Josh took a step back. "Relax, man, we're just talking." "Talking?" James' voice was full of accusation. "Even in your state, Cherry, you still want men's attention? Has it now gotten to the stage where you now openly seduce men?" Cherry froze and people turned to look at her. Tom continued sarcastically. "Imagine if I allowed you to wear makeup and tight dresses. Would you bring men into our house too?" The words hit Cherry like a dagger. So this was it. Tom had never been protecting her. He had been hiding her. He was insecure. He had deliberately made her unattractive because he was afraid. And she had let him. She enabled him. Cherry turned and walked out of the wedding hall, feeling ashamed and humiliated. She had seen and heard enough. As she walked down to the bus station, her mind was in turmoil. She pulled out her phone, something she rarely used anymore, and opened her old abandoned Facebook account, the same account Tom had convinced her to abandon when they got married. And there she was, the woman she used to be. She saw several pictures of herself smiling, glowing, and radiating life. She had been beautiful and happy. As she looked at the pictures, she couldn't hold back the tears in her eyes. She had lost herself. Well, not anymore. That minute, Cherry made a decision. She was done. She did not return home that night. Instead, she booked a small hotel and started planning her escape. The next morning, she went home, packed her bags, and was about to leave when Tom came out. His face darkened when he saw the suitcases. He laughed coldly. "So, you are finally leaving. You want to go and be with those men, right?" Cherry smiled genuinely for the first time since she married him. "Yes, I want to be admired, just like you admire other women, while turning your own wife into a shadow of herself." Tom scoffed. "You will regret this. I will not beg you." Cherry rolled her suitcase towards the gate. "I don't need you to beg me. I just need you to sign the divorce papers when they arrive." And with that, she walked out of his life. In just 6 months of separating from Tom, Cherry transformed herself. She worked on herself from the inside to the outside. She exercised daily, ate healthy, and rebuilt her confidence. She got a job, met new people, and started living again. It was at that point that she decided it was time to send the divorce papers over to Tom so that she would finally be able to move on, and probably if she met a better and confident man, she wouldn't keep him waiting because she wasn't divorced yet. She got a lawyer and began the process, and when the time came for their divorce settlement, she dressed to kill just like she would always do. When Tom arrived at the lawyer's office, his jaw dropped open and he immediately regretted his actions. Cherry was alive and stunning again. He wanted her back. He swallowed hard and tried to salvage things. Cherry, I didn't intend for things to get to this point. I was just scared of other men seeing your beauty since you are my wife. I don't know if we could. I promise I will change. But Cherry laughed. Mr. Tom, sign the papers and go to hell. That is where you and your dark, insecure hearts belong. Tom had no choice but to sign the papers, and Cherry breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, she was free. She had found herself again. And as she walked out of the office feeling lighter than ever, she promised herself that she would never let anyone dim her lights again. Thank you for watching the story. Kindly share your thoughts about the story with me in the comment section. Remember, a man who loves you will build you up and not break you down. Never let anyone diminish your confidence out of their own insecurity. And most importantly, never forget who you are. Share the story out with your loved ones and give the story a thumbs up also. Subscribe to this channel for more interesting stories. Thank you and remain blessed.